So these are the steps for factoring trinomials that have an a other than 1 using what I call the ACX game. You always have to start off by checking your GCF, checking to see if there is a GCF. 5 is prime, 17 is prime, and 6 is not. So there, and this one does not have an M, so there is not a GCF that will come out of all of those factors, all of those coefficients. So step number 1, we can check that off and say that there was none. There is no GCF. The next thing you do is you draw your X, because we are playing the X game. And at the top, put AC. That's what it says. Draw your X and write AC at the top. Then we're going to use the symbols that we see here. We're going to fill those in right here because they give us a clue. And notice that there's a new step that says put the variables on the sides. So this problem has an M. So I'm going to go ahead and put my times symbol down here because we know that this is where we're going to multiply. We're going to put the plus sign down here because we're going to be adding those two numbers. And right here, I'm going to go ahead and add my M's. And the reason that I'm going to add my M's is because each one of the numbers that I'm going to put right here is we're going to do different things with these two numbers than we did previously on just the X game. This is the ACX game. And in this problem, in this spot up here, I'm not going to just put the 6. I'm going to take the 5 and multiply it times the 6. That's why I put the AC at the top to remind me to multiply 5 times 6. And I'm going to be working with the number 30. Now I do put the 17 down here just like I always do, and it is a negative 17. Okay. So these two symbols are the same. Multiply goes on top. Whatever the sign is right here goes on bottom. I'm going to multiply A times C. That's going to go in the top. And then my 17, my B term, goes on the bottom. Now I'm going to look for two numbers that multiply together to give me 30 that are going to add to give me 17. So if you need to create the table or write your 30, okay, these numbers that I'm about to list right here are the numbers that multiply together to give me 30, and then they're going to add to give me what? Okay, so 30, we remember how we started. We said 1 times 30 gives you 30. 1 plus 30 gives you 31. I'm looking for 17, and of course these must be negative because I got to get negative 17. So 2 times what? 15. 2 times 15, and that's going to give me 17. Oh, there it is. I don't even have to keep going. I could, though. 3 times 10, 4, 5 times 6, 6 times 5 starts over. So those are all my numbers. Okay, so I can see right here that this is the pair that I want. Okay, so I'm going to put 2. And it doesn't matter if you put the 2 on the left or if you put the 5 on the left. That does not matter. Just put the 2 and the 5 in the place, okay? So it says that was step number 4, find your numbers. I did that. Now step number 5 says rewrite the equation, replacing your B with the two numbers from the X game, okay? So I'm going to rewrite my equation, 5m squared. By the way, these are steps 1 through 4, and this is step 5. Step 5, 5m squared. I'm going to not put the negative 17, but instead I'm going to put the 2 and the 5. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and write it down so that you can actually see me doing it. Okay, so I'm going to take this term right here. I'm going to take it out. And in place of this negative 17, oh, I really should have already had the negative 2 and the negative 5 up there, because negative 2 and negative, oh, for Pete's sake, negative 15 and negative 2 add together to give me negative 17. So I'm going to take negative 2 and negative 15 are going to combine together to give me negative 17. Now, instead of writing the negative 17, I'm going to write the negative 2 and the negative 15. Now, you do need to pay attention to what order you put them in down here. Up here, it doesn't matter, but down here it does, because I want whichever one of these two numbers right here, whichever one, if it's either negative 15 or negative 2, is going to have a common factor with the 5. And we want the one, the one of the two numbers with the M's on them, that's going to have a common factor with 6 to be right in front of the 6. Okay, so that means that it's going to make more sense for me to put the negative 15 right down here. And I'm going to put the negative 2 M right in front of the 6. Now, I did that very purposely, because what I'm going to do now, it says factor by grouping. You may not have heard that term before, but factor by grouping, when you read that, what you want to think is that we're going to undo the double distribution. So those of you who use the double distribution property, we're going to group these two together and pretend like it's one problem. Okay, so it's just one problem. We're going to completely ignore this one. I wonder if I can cover it up with a shape. I don't know. We'll see. I might can. There we go. I'm just going to completely ignore it for just a second, okay? And I'm only going to factor out this. Well, these two have a GCF. These two have a GCF of 5M. So I'm going to pull the 5M out front. And that's the 5 is out here. One of those M's is out here. So I'm going to have one M left. Again, my 5 is out here. One of those two M's is out here. So I have one M left. Then I'm going to put my minus sign. And then I'm going to say 5 times what will give me 15? That's a 3. And then my M is already out here. So I've undistributed. Okay, now I am going to move the box, and I'm going to put it over here, and I'm going to pretend like that part wasn't there. And now I'm going to look at these two. I'm going to put my minus sign down, and now I'm going to look at these two and see if there is a GCF with 2M and 6. Well, the 2M and 6 are both even numbers, so I believe I can factor out a 2. So I'm going to factor out a 2, and now I'm going to put what's left. If I look at the 2M and I pull the 2 out, that's going to leave me an M. Now, notice that I have this negative that was out front right here, this negative 2. Is going to be what I'm going to have to distribute. So if I distribute a negative 2 times what will give me a positive 6. So when I factored out that 2, it wasn't really just a 2, it was a negative 2. So if I'm multiplying negative 2 times something to get a positive 6, that something has to be a negative. And negative 2 times negative 3 will give me a positive 6. Now, it's important that you see that these two terms right here were the exact same term. So that means that these two terms right here, this one and this one, was that first factor that I separated so I could do double distribution. So take the two GCFs, put them together as one term, and then take the term that was left over from each one of them, and that's that back term. And now we have that first problem completely factored.